Hi, Catherine. How are you?
Hi, Army. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too. How's it going on your side?
It's going okay. I'm happy it's Friday. How about you?
Same. I'm also happy that it's Friday, and I'm also happy that probably we're gonna have a nice weather starting next week. So I'm very much looking forward to that.
Yes, springtime in Montreal, springtime in Ottawa are very nice times.
Exactly. So today you're here because you'll be talking about a little bit about the services and the program that you offer to your clients or your students.
Hmm.
And we connected a few months ago where I came on your show and I spoke about my experience with learning English. And so now it's your time telling us a little bit about how you teach English and how people can use your services. So, first question that I have for you is tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, what services you offer.
Sure. Well, first, thank you for having me, and thank you for being on my podcast because I got a lot of nice replies from people talking about how inspiring it was to hear from you about your experiences learning English and French, and particularly your public speaking, because that's what a lot of people are hesitant to do. But so thank you. And in terms of me, I'm an English language teacher. I primarily work with teachers in South America, Europe, and Asia. And I also, about 2.5 years ago, started a podcast. A year and a half ago. I'm giving it too much time. A year and a half ago. It feels like over 2 years, called Here You Go podcast. And I know we'll talk about that a little bit more.
So, you said you started a few years ago teaching. So, what are some of the things that you offer? Is it like, do you offer actual lessons? Do you offer them online? Do you meet in person with the students? How does it work?
Sure. It's funny because I actually began my teaching career in 1995 in Toronto and in Mexico. And then I went back and did a master's degree in international development and took a different career path. I found my way back to teaching English in 2016. And I was teaching in real live classrooms in New York City and New Jersey. But like so many teachers, everything changed during the pandemic. And I taught those classes online, and then over time started to just develop a one-on-one program. And so what I do is I currently offer one-on-one teaching to primarily English language teachers, as I said, in other parts of the world. So teachers where English is not their first language. But I also work with academics, with investment bankers, with lawyers. So it's really whoever comes to me and really wants to build their advanced proficiency. Everybody I'm working with is very proficient, and they're just looking to maintain or build that proficiency. And then I also do a pronunciation for teachers course. I run that twice a year, and it's an 8-week program to I'm really passionate about teaching pronunciation, and not like the little sounds, but the natural flow of speech, intonation, pitch, rhythm, where to pause, where to stress. And a lot of English language teachers feel hesitant to teach pronunciation. They feel that it's not something that's a strength. And so I'm on a mission to get teachers everywhere to teach pronunciation. So that course is offered in the spring and in the fall. The next one will be starting May 1st. And then the last thing I do is I create Here You Go podcast every 2 weeks. It's released and it's designed for high beginner and up students, learners, but also their teachers. I really believe it's a resource that teachers can use in their own lessons to for a lot of different purposes, and I'm sure we'll get to that as well. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's in a nutshell the three things that I offer.
So you said you provide basically lesson to advanced speakers. So I'm assuming it's more about how you communicate with other people basically. So it's sort of like, yes, it's English, but it's more like because it sounded to me it's like a mix of like communication skills and public speaking skills, because we also learn about like pitch and intonation in public speaking. So I think it's like a fusion of the two, right?
I think you've hit the nail on the head. Exactly. A lot of it is that many teachers that I teach are teaching beginners or intermediate students. So they don't have the opportunity every day to speak with other highly proficient speakers. So it's a chance for them to push their language up a bit. And occasionally they'll hear me say something and go, "Oh, I've never heard that expression before. Can you say it again?" So it's those little moments that make me very excited when I think, oh, we've touched on something that is new for them. And you're absolutely right. It's about how we deliver messages and all the choices we have in how we do that.
Okay. Wow, seems interesting. And what about people who want to learn a little bit about, who are beginners or intermediate? Because I know you have your podcast that helps with that. Is there anything else that you offer to beginners or intermediate level students?
You know, I've moved away from beginners and intermediate level students. I'm primarily focused on more advanced speakers, but I am currently working with a beginner, an Italian student, and it's been a real I'd say it's been a ride, I think, for me to go back to teaching beginners. And he and I think, are having a lot of fun. At the beginner level, you really see a lot of progress very fast. And so I'm enjoying seeing him remember from week to week, oh yeah, we talked about this, let me apply it. But this is a special case, working with him. But on the topic of the podcast and beginners, you know, I decided to make the podcast. It was kind of crazy because I'm a woman in my 50s. And when I told my son I was going to make a podcast, he thought that was the funniest thing in the world. He's 24. It's like, what, you're not Joe Rogan? Exactly. But my brother-in-law, who's a musician, he said, go for it, try it. And it came out of a conversation I had with a beginner student of mine in New Jersey. Her name was Marta, and she worked all night cleaning businesses, and then she would come to class in the morning. And she told me that she listened to YouTube lessons while she cleaned. And I asked her what she liked about that. And she said that she liked them, but she always wished she had a pen and paper, but she couldn't when she was cleaning. So I asked her if she heard like just a story, if that would be appealing to her. And she said yes. And so I had her in mind. And so my podcast isn't language focused in that, you know, it's not directed by grammar or anything that we'd see in a typical textbook. It's really about, I read about something or I hear something and I think, let me throw that out there to people. Let me kind of paraphrase, make a podcast about it. But I intentionally include a variety of phrasal verbs. I include advanced language. I include idioms. And I also try not to be perfect in my recordings. And when I have conversations, like when you and I talked, I really want listeners to listen for more than just the idea. I want them to listen to how words change when we speak them as compared to how they're written on the page. So listening for contractions, listening for different accents, because there's so many Englishes, and you and I talked about how there's so many Frenches too. So just getting used to hearing all those different things. And so from beginners all the way up, I think Here You Go podcast offers everybody something, whether it's just something to rethink, think about, listening for language, and listening for how the sounds of English are spoken.
You spoke about how this student was basically like listening to YouTube videos as she was working or cleaning. And you said, how about like if you listen to a story, which is something a little bit, something that requires less effort because you don't have to write anything. Would you have any other strategies that you can share, especially when people are listening to something while they're doing something else? Because I also like listen to podcasts as I'm cleaning home or cooking, but I listen to something that is like light. So I don't know if you have anything else that you can share.
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, we often listen to a podcast once, right? And I'm always suggesting to people, whether it's a podcast or a song or a TV show, it doesn't matter. If you're listening for more than just an idea, you need to listen more than once. So my idea was for this student, Marta, she could, that night at work, listen to the 15, 20-minute episode. And then the next day, while she was having lunch, listen to it again. And at that time, listen with attention. So listen for, oh, I don't know that. I didn't know you could use a verb that way. Or what is that expression? I've never heard that before. So from a language point of view, it's about doing a listening activity more than once. So listen once when you're cooking, when you're cleaning your house. Listen a second time, even if it's just listening to 5 minutes of it again, right? And ideally transcribing, maybe 20 seconds, just to see if you heard everything that was said. Can you capture the English? And that's a way to go further. And like I said, you could do it with a TV show. Don't watch it without the subtitles the first time, and then maybe go back to a particular part and listen again without the subtitles and see if you can capture everything. I had a guest on my podcast, and you and I talked about this too, about music.
Yes.
One of my other guests, Bistra, spoke about when she was learning English many years ago. It was before the internet, and so you couldn't access the lyrics to songs just on your phone or your computer. So she said she would obsessively listen to the Beatles and write down all the lyrics as she listened and take them to school and show her teacher. She was so motivated to learn English through the music of the Beatles. And I think we've forgotten that with everything being so accessible now, we don't take those extra steps. And that's really all we need to do, whether it's with music, TV, podcasts, and more, magazines and newspapers are having the authors read their article. So just the other day, I had a student, he was reading a book review from the New York Times, and the author who wrote the article also read the article. And I thought, what a great resource, because we can read it and then we can listen to her read it. And when she's reading it, you can hear the words she's stressing. You can hear where she pauses. You can hear that she doesn't say we will, but will. So I was really pleased to discover that this is a new thing.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking probably even with ebooks, that could be an option. You have longer books, you have shorter books. So if you want to listen to something very quick and it's a story, you can go with an ebook. And I think even with artificial intelligence, I think you can do something with that as well.
You're absolutely right. And I'm always forgetting about ebooks or audiobooks, because I'm a reader and I love to read, but I know that a lot of people like audiobooks.
Audiobooks, yeah.
From a learning perspective, I think you're right. It's great if you can combine reading and listening. You're hearing the language at the same time as you're reading it. What great input.
Yeah, exactly. So you spoke about English expression. Can you share with us, let's say, two most common ones, but which are like common but not so common, so that people can actually learn something?
oh, that's tough, because I have a huge list. And I was thinking about it. Idioms in English are everywhere. And I guess when I was trying to think of the most common, I thought, what have students said to me? What are you saying? And I think of this one student I had in New Jersey, Jorge from Venezuela. And it was about 3 classes in, and finally he just put up his hand and he said, "Teacher, what's go ahead?" I said, "What?" He said, "What's go ahead?" I said, "Oh, go ahead, go ahead." He was hearing it as go ahead, go ahead. And so that's a classic idiom that we use all the time, right? Go ahead, take your turn, speak. It's your turn. We're always saying, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. So keep your ear out for that one. What else? I mean, I was from my latest episode, I've used a few that, sometimes I think they're age related. Because, for example, I said, I'm no spring chicken. But my but my 24-year-old would never say that. So, but, I'm no spring chicken. You might hear this one a lot, the icing on the cake or the cherry on top, to express that this is an extra or, the best of something.
Yeah.
Maybe this one, take it easy, take it easy, take it easy, relax. So those are just a few, but they're all around. And I think actually native English speakers rely on them too much. And that can be very challenging for learners. So I think we need to be mindful that there are places where we should probably not use an idiom because we don't want to make somebody feel excluded from a conversation. Or if we're going to use it, explain it, rephrase it.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing those ones. I mean, they are pretty useful and common. I really like no spring chicken because I never heard that one, but I think that was a good one.
Do you have one that you constantly use or you hear in your day-to-day?
No, I probably do use a lot of them, but I don't pay attention to them.
Yeah.
The grass is greener on the other side. That's one that comes to my mind right now.
Yeah, that's a good one. Because we're always comparing our situation to something else and thinking it's probably greener, but yeah, probably not.
Or it takes two to tango. That's another one.
Yeah, that's true.
So, all right, we're almost heading towards the end of our interview. So I have one last question and then we will jump very quickly on our rapid fire question. Okay. So you spoke about how you were in your 50s and you recently turned 55. Maybe share with us one life lesson.
I have so many life lessons, so narrowing it down to one is tough, but just this morning I was thinking, it's connected to what I do, listening. And I think that what I've learned as I've gotten older is that it's really important to listen carefully, to not be listening to respond, but to listen to really understand what the person is saying. And connected to that would be to ask questions and ask, so this is what we're doing, you and I here, we're sharing, asking questions, learning. I really think that keeping an open mind by listening and being curious it's just a way to keep learning and keep growing and recognize that every year we get to meet new people and learn new things is a good thing.
Definitely. Well, thank you for sharing your life lesson. Now we will jump very quickly on our rapid fire question. So it's a rapid fire, so you don't have to think too much and it has to be a very quick answer.
Okay.
So, are you ready?
I hope so.
Okay, my first question is the most valuable lesson you learned from a mistake.
Jeez. That nobody cares.
Fair enough.
Probably nobody cares.
Fair enough. The most challenging language for beginners.
Well, I'm going to have to say it's going to be a language that doesn't share the same alphabet. So whether it's Arabic or Cantonese, yes.
Okay. Online lessons or in-person lessons? What do you prefer?
Online.
Online, okay. Do you prefer grammar or conversation practice?
Oh, conversation, hands down.
Last question. What's your go-to language learning resource?
Books.
Books.
Says the person who's making a podcast.
I always go. Maybe you will have a book. I don't know.
Books are always a source of everything. So books first.
Sounds good. Well, that was it for the rapid fire question. It wasn't so painful.
No.
Before we go, do you want to tell us where people can find you and how they can connect with you?
Sure. Where I am every day is I'm on Instagram. It's my name, Catherine Angus _ Here You Go. My podcast, Here You Go, is available on every podcast streaming app. And I also can be reached from my webpage, which is englishwithcatherine.com. I do have a LinkedIn page, but I'm not there as often. So webpage and Instagram are the best ways to get me directly.
Perfect. Well, I will put all the information in the description below. And once again, Catherine, I want to thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you, Urmi, and thank you for doing everything that you do to really bring language teachers and others to your audience. And like I said, and here you go, you're a great role model for learners. I really admire you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.